What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Big Nate's Book Reviews, home of the best book reviews. And today we have a dope ass video. Today we are contributing to the ever expanding collection of Big Nate's bookshelf. That's right, today we are doing a book haul. These books are from a local bookstore of mine where I live right now. These books here I got on a trip from New York, so as you can see they're scattered across different book trips, so we're going to talk about those. And then last but not least, do not sleep on your local Goodwill. So we got a ton of books today. This is going to be an extra special video because we got hella books to discuss. In the meantime, you already know I got my cup of tea, I got the doobie, and today we are going to be smoking this for whatever your local bookstore is. So Big Nate gang already knows what to do. If you're not, welcome to the channel, pop a squat, and we're going to talk about some dope ass books. And so without further ado, let's spark the doobie and get into it. First, I actually want to say a few words about like my book buying philosophy, because at a certain point I was like, all right, I'm going on a book buying ban, but that was a long time. We long past that. But for me, going to a bookstore is almost more than anything like a social event. Like me and my girl will pick up some coffee, we'll go to the bookstore, we'll browse. And you know, at this point I kind of view my bookshelf almost as a library, because there's been so many points where it's like I'll just on a whim want, you know, so-and-so book that I've like, for instance, Moby Dick, which I'm pretty sure I don't actually have. But the point is, like, I feel like I'm kind of an impulsive reader sometimes, and so I don't want it to be one of those things where it's like I just don't happen to have the book on hand. I want to be able to just look through all my bookshelf and have it be a collection of all the types of books, literature that I want to read and that I think are proud, I would be proud to represent as the Big Nate literature style. And of course, who knows, all of that could very well just be a ultra elaborate cope for me to just keep buying books. But I'm gonna just enlist the Borges quote, you know, if I always imagined heaven as like an infinite library. It's something like that. So why would I not want to surround myself with these beautiful books? But okay, enough chit chat. Let's get into our first book, and that is a heavy hitter, Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. And so my thing with this book, I know I'm going to read it at some point just because for one, because it's so controversial. On the one hand, because people say one of their favorite books, fantastic, you know, peak literature. And then I hear a lot of people say, also from the same, you know, from the mouths of the same horses, say that the book is also kind of like incomprehensible. You're not going to understand it the first time. And ultimately, I feel like I needed to just, you know, I can't take this hearsay. I need to go in and figure out for myself. My problem with books like these that are like, you know, notoriously difficult and complex and almost just like confusing is to me, usually that is a mark of just like, you know, a bad writer. When the plot is not good, it's confusing. And it's like, sometimes they'll just throw a bunch of hodgepodge and like leave it to the reader to have like this, you know, crazy interpretation where really there's nothing actually there. But I've heard enough people talk about this book and say it's their favorite book and this, that, and the other to understand that there is a there, so to speak. It's also been my hesitation for Ulysses by James Joyce. And that reminds me of Finnegan's Wake. Like, I'm pretty sure that's a book I'm never going to touch because it just sounds like literally incomprehensible. I feel like the trade-off is not worth it for that book. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But Ulysses, I'm definitely gonna check that out at some point. It's just, you know, it's my hesitation. I think that's natural. I have a little hesitation. But once I heard that Borges said that Ulysses was one of his favorite novels, that was an instant, you know, mandatory reading. So, you know, I really don't know what let's take a look at the back of this, or the summary. I know it has to do with like the war. That's really it. Okay, it's actually kind of weird. It's got like, you know, boom and then boom. So it's not your everyday, but that's already cool. A screaming comes across the sky. There is a hand to turn time, though thy glass today be run, till the light that hath brought the towers low, find the last poor preterite one, till the riders sleep by every road, and through our crippled zone, with the face on every mountainside and a soul in every stone. Okay, yeah. See, so for one, I see that was kind of like confusing. Like, okay, what actually was said there? But this is, you know, it's giving just from a first initial reading. So anyway, I know people feel strongly about this book. Let me know if Big Nate should read this sooner than later. Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. All right, up next we have Genealogy of Morals, and I never know how to pronounce that. Ecce Homo. I said, sorry, I'm not reading that, bro. No, I'm just playing. But these are two books by Friedrich Nietzsche, and I have read Twilight of the Idols and the Antichrist, but honestly those were relatively short texts, so I'm working my way up. From what I understand, Thus Spake Zarathustra, third time's the charm, is the one that's like his sort of masterpiece that you should kind of work up to. Like, it's good if you have background knowledge. I don't know, that might just be cap. From my understanding, the genealogy of morals, as the title suggests, is, as the back of the book says here, in fact, 3 essays just about his moral philosophy, and he has like, I've heard the terms, you know, master and slave morality, conscience, and you know, other things that I've heard about Nietzsche, but it'll be good to read the actual text. And then Ecce Homo is like a book. Apparently, it says it reviews all of his life and works. It contains separate chapters on all the books he himself published. So almost like a Nietzsche reader. That's the vibe I'm getting. So when I saw this at my local bookstore with my ideal translation, I had to. There wasn't a choice. There wasn't a choice. Book buying be damned. Okay, and up next we have Consider the Lobster by David Foster Wallace. I know all the pinch on bros are going wild for this one because this is a collection of essays by the DFW himself, and I've read the titular one, and honestly, it was fantastic. Consider the Lobster. Like, if I remember, and this is, you know, okay, to go on a little tangent here, I think part of what makes David Foster Wallace's writing good is, I don't know if this is the right term, but it's almost like gonzo journalism. I think he even worked as a journalist, if I'm not mistaken. It's when you put your own sort of personal experience and philosophy and thoughts and insights into the reporting event itself. And that's why Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson is so crazy, because it's like him just doing a ridiculous amount of like crazy psychedelics and reporting on, like, I'm pretty sure it's like a NASCAR race car event. Anyway, David Foster Wallace does something similar in Consider the Lobster, where it's like a lobster festival, and I think it's like some Midwest ass, I don't know where it is, but it's a lobster festival, and he talks about basically the process. I'm not trying to like go into the whole essay, but like how you basically boil a lobster alive, and that's actually insane. And so that's just the starting point too for a lot of other bigger philosophical ideas that he'll talk about. And so if this collection of essays is anything like that, then you know I had to check it out. Just to name some essays, Big Red Sun, I've heard of that one. I don't even have no idea what it's about, but that's a fan favorite. Certainly the end of something or other, one would sort of have to think. That's the thing about David Foster Wallace too, is he's very like maximalist, like long ass, like, look, some remarks on Kafka's funniness from which probably not enough has been removed. And he very much has this style too in the essays I've read, from a supposedly fun thing I'll never do again. So when I saw this, like I said, I had to pick it up. That was mandatory. Okay, this next one might throw some of you guys for a loop. I found myself thrown for a loop by myself, and it is, I actually don't even know. The Soul of an Octopus. But if I understand, it's a popular nonfiction, popular science book. I also see National Book Award finalist. And yeah, so let me just some little sentences from the back here. As a scientist, Cy Montgomery explores the emotional and physical world of the octopus. Because the octopus, squid, I think it's the octopus that are the smart one. I think squid are kind of like a notch below. But they've always just been so fascinating. Like, even in like my neuroscience classes, you learn about them. They have like a totally distributed brain, such that I'm pretty sure if you cut like a tentacle off, it can sort of like function semi-autonomously. Totally alien, different structure than how we have our like single localized brain, and yet they're capable of what's undeniably like, you know, intelligent action, some level of understanding. There's even questions of like the self and stuff. But basically he does almost, it almost seems like some gonzo journalism. Look, practicing true immersion journalism from New England aquarium tanks to the reefs of French Polynesia and the Gulf of Mexico, blah 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 blah. I just think that octopus intelligence and like this book will have a lot of interesting like philosophical, metaphysical ideas. Honestly, I've been meaning to do a deep dive into octopi for a while, so I had to, once I saw it again, I had to get it. So that is The Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery. Let me know if you have heard anything about that. And then up next, we have, also in the science theme, The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. And I know he's very much like a biology bro now. Richard Dawkins tweeted out some stupid shit like, what is the point of metamorphosis? Like, he is like the actual character of like the ultra scientific bro. He's like, if it's science fiction, then it's bad science fiction. If it's supposed to be like, he is this whole thing where he's just like, what was the point? I was like, bro, that's crazy. It just went right over your head. But nevertheless, in his heyday, Richard Dawkins did put out a classic book of science and biology, The Selfish Gene. I don't even know what it's about. The back, look, that text is too small. I'm not going to read that. I just know it is an important text, and so therefore had a mandatory spot in the Big Nate's Book Reviews, Home of the Best Book Reviews library. So, okay, and then this one was just kind of fun. It says essential visual history of world mythology. Because if you guys know Big Nate, the real OG, they know that I'm into mythology and continually want to learn more. And so I saw this little reader. Honestly, I need to put this in the bathroom. Perfect book to like, you know, take a shit and just look through. And on top of that, if you did not notice, check the logo. That's National Geographic. So you know it's gonna be a banger. You know it's gonna be a banger. I saw it, I had to get it. It fit right in with the library. And so those are the books that I got at my local bookstore. So up next, we're gonna talk about the ones which I got from Strand in New York City, which was a very dope bookstore. So first, I finally caved and got this book. what's it called? The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. And so I've heard from personal testimony that it's supposed to be good. I always love a good book on like the creative and artistic process. In fact, you'll see another one of those. That's some foreshadowing right there. But I've been wanting this book, and it's like, I don't really want to buy it new, but it's been like new for so, its status ain't changing anytime soon. And so I do hate to say that I spent $32 on this, but hey, what better place to spend that than the local bookstore of New York City? So I caved and I got this. Already I'm kind of interested with like the monad, and I actually don't know what this is. Maybe I'll get into it. But the preface quote right here, which because I don't see a back of the book summary, but the preface quote: "The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable." So already, you know, I'm listening. And it's like the creative act, a way of being, creativity as process, which I'm totally all about. I have a daily practice for all my different creative pursuits. So I saw that again. I had to get it. What's a man to do? What's a man to do? Up next, we have Something Wicked from Japan: Ghosts, Demons, and Yokai and Yukio Masterpieces. And so I just saw this already. I'm intrigued, and the pictures I thought were just beautiful. And it seems like it goes back to like, you know, classic art. Probably will like, you know, go through the ages, and it's like all the different monsters and shit like that. And so it just, this at the end of the day is really just more research for mythology, but it's also like, look at these, you know, beautiful pictures. So I saw it, and you know what I had to do? Fill in the blanks. So that's Something Wicked from Japan. I mean, that's even a cool just title, low-key. So there you have it, folks. Okay, up next, that foreshadowing I was alluding to. It is a book called Art and Fear. And another brief tangent here. This is why a good bookstore is where it's worth its weight in gold. Because a good bookstore is also a sort of like curator. Like I found this in, and I love when books have whole sections just on like literary criticism, like Walter Benjamin, Susan Sontag, just like a whole section just on literary criticism, just as I found this book in a section on the creation of art. And what really stood out to me about this book specifically though is that I started reading it, and because, you know, people sleep on that. It's like, oh, should I get this book to read the back and look at the cover? But it's like, you should honestly, best way to do it, just start reading, or just like flip to a little part. But this writing instantly reminded me actually of On Writing Well by, I forget, it's like William Zinsser. I'm pretty sure it's William Zinsser. And that was one of my favorite books on writing in general. And this had like that clarity, that insight. And so I personally really enjoyed this book. That's why I sort of ate it up so quick. And I feel like I've been motivated to write all the more so. So that is Art and Fear by David Bales and Ted Orland. Okay, and that wraps up the books that I got in New York. And so last but not least, we have some, and these are fairly recent that I got on some Goodwill runs. So first, we have Oliver Sacks, Everything in Its Place. And so we got a little silhouette, look at the little magnifying glass, got the sky, pretty cool. But I saw this, you know, Oliver Sacks, to me, I learned about him from my neuroscience classes, and his popular science writing, like I've read essays, but also The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. Those were very influential books for me at that time. And then I saw this book, and I'm looking at the contents: Neurological Dreams, Nothingness, Seeing God in the Third Millennium, Hiccups and Other Curious Behavior. So just knowing Oliver Sacks as a writer and as a scientist, and being able to, like, you know, read these sort of whimsical, different philosophical topics, gotta be one of my favorite genres. Great thinkers whimsically writing essays and thoughts about like random things. So all right, that is Oliver Sacks, Everything in Its Place. If you see that Goodwill price for $2.29, do not sleep on Goodwill as a source. Up next, we have Wide Sargasso Sea by Gene Rice. Hopefully I pronounced that right. But the real reason I got this is because Marlon James from Marlon and Jake Read Dead People, he talks about this. I swear he said it was one of his favorite books. He mentions it as a book he really likes and has reread multiple times. So when I saw it, especially for $2.29, and it's quick, I had to get that. So that is, let me know if you've read this. I'm particularly interested in this one because I have no idea what it's about, and no, I'm not going to read the back. I want to go in blind. Just like I'd be going in blind to the Epic of Gilgamesh by, actually I think it's unknown, right? Yeah, it would have said. So that's unknown. But I think this is one of the oldest texts in history. I think it's like the first story. People love to correct me on that, so let me know. But it says here, miraculously preserved on clay tablets, deciphered only in the last century. Oh wow, that's actually kind of crazy. But it is the story of Gilgamesh, the great king of Uruk. Long and arduous journey. Ooh, the spring of youth. Is that the first mention of like the fountain of youth? Also included in the epic is a legend of the flood, which agrees with many details in the biblical story of Noah. So it's like, yeah, that's just, you know, that's super mandatory. And that is the epic of Gilgamesh. I swear I've even read this in high school, but if I do, I don't remember any of it. But let me know if the epic of Gilgamesh is fire or if it is trash. So let us know in the comments. And then it is with a heavy heart to you that I'm coming with our last book, however, not least. And again, remember, this is a Goodwill find for $3. But the math book, and before you start sighing, hooting and hollering, there are some like okay, I'm doing terrible. There are some super cool, interesting pictures and concepts in here, and like each thing is like a, you know, it's like a page. Well, okay, first off, I see surrealism right there, and then hold up, don't think I didn't see you there. Pythagoras. Okay, I'm not gonna do it, but I swear that was like the tritesseract of whatever the fuck they're called, of the Pythagorean school of thought. But anyway, I saw this, you know, I'm doing a degree in mathematics officially now, so I saw this too. It's like, you know, let's get brushed up on the philosophy of math and look at some of the, you know, like the pictures and the art associated with this field. So without further ado, we conclude today's book haul. Let me know if you've heard of or fuck with any of these books. Let me know if they are mid. Let me know what other books I should check out. You guys already know the drill. In the meantime, get to my Instagram at Big Nate's Book Reviews. Get to the second channel. I just did a video on the philosophy of War and Peace on the second channel, The Big Nate Review. And in the meantime, thank you for watching the Big Nate's Book Reviews, home of the best book reviews.